Hello students, welcome back to the second lecture on unit number 1 for the course Control System 2. Last lecture we have discussed about the brief introduction of the digital control system. In that we have seen the block diagram for continuous time control system and also the block diagram of digital control system. We have seen how these two systems are different from each other, and also we have seen the different components of both the control systems. At the same time, we have seen one example of driving a car in which there are two outputs that are required to be controlled, that is the speed and the second one is heading, and these two outputs are controlled by two different actuators. One is the leg for applying the brakes and other is the hand for changing the position of steering. And in that control system, our brain is acting as the controller. So that was the example of continuous time control system. On the similar lines, if we go for an autonomous vehicle or an unmanned vehicle, that can be considered as a digital control system. So that example we have seen in the last lecture. Now this lecture we will talk about different types of signals. We will understand how to represent these signals. Also we will see the block diagram of digital control system in more detail, and later we will explain this block diagram with the help of another example, which is the example of speed control of DC motor using control rectifier, and later on we will talk about advantages and disadvantages of the digital control system. Now here if you see types of the signal, so initially we will talk about the continuous time signals. So the first signal you can see here, this is a continuous time signal, continuous time analog signal, and this second signal is continuous time quantized signal. Now what is meant by continuous time signal, continuous time analog signal and continuous time quantized signal, that we will see. Continuous time signal is defined over continuous range of time. This continuous time signal, both are continuous time signals, but this is analog signal, this is quantized signal. Both the continuous time signals are defined over continuous range of time. Amplitude may be the function, may be the continuous range of values or finite number of distinct values. This is continuous range of values. Here the amplitude is continuous range of values, and here the amplitude is a finite number of distinct intervals. So this is one interval, this is another interval, this is third interval, and likewise. So both are the continuous time signals, but this is an analog signal, this is a quantized signal. So analog signal is defined over a continuous range of the time whose amplitude can assume continuous range of values. Right? Now what is quantized signal? Before that we need to understand what is quantization. Quantization is the process of representing a variable by a set of distinct values. Quantization is the process of representing a variable by a set of distinct values. And what is quantized value then? What is quantized signal? This quantized signal is the values obtained by the process of quantization are called as quantized values. Values obtained by the quantization are called as the quantized value. So this is the continuous time quantized signal and this is a continuous time analog signal. Both have the continuous values, continuous range of values, right? So this is about the continuous signals, continuous time signals. Then let us talk about the discrete time signals. Now again, I have to say that both these signals are discrete time signals. This is also a discrete time signal. This is also a discrete time signal. But this signal is a sampled data signal and this is a digital signal. This is a sampled data signal. This signal is obtained by sampling a continuous time signal. If you see this continuous time signal, if it is sampled at equal interval of times, then we will get this type of signal. That is a sampled data signal. So sampled data signal is obtained by sampling the continuous time analog signal. And this is a digital signal which is obtained by quantization. This is the digital signal obtained by quantization. Now here you can see that there is a small change in the amplitudes of these two values at these two different samples. This value and this value is having a small difference, but the quantization, by the process of quantization, these two are made equal. These two are made equal. That is quantization. That is quantization. The process of representing a variable by a set of distinct values, that is called as quantization. And after that, these quantized values are converted into digital signals. Digital signal means they are represented in the form of bits. They are represented in the form of bits. So digital signal is a discrete time signal with a quantized amplitude. Digital signal is a discrete signal with a quantized amplitude. These are the quantized amplitudes, right? And then such a signal can be represented by the sequence of numbers. Such a signal is represented by the sequence of numbers in the form of binary numbers like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0 and likewise, right? So these two are essentially discrete time signals. This is a sample data signal. This is a digital signal. This one is a sampled data signal and this is a digital signal. So these are the different types of the signals. So here we have seen continuous time signals, continuous time analog signal, continuous time quantized signal, and this one is sample data signal and this is a digital signal. These two are discrete time signals. These two are discrete time signal. I must say that analog signal. Now this analog signal is a special case of continuous time signal. Analog signal is a special case of continuous time signal. Similarly, the term discrete time signal, here this term discrete time signal is broader than the term digital signal. This term discrete time signal is broader than the term digital signal or sample data system, right? So these are the different types of signals. Now let us move ahead for considering the closed loop sample data control system, right? Now we need to understand there are three different terms associated with this. We can call it as discrete time control system, digital control system, and sample data control system. So what are these control systems that we will see? Discrete data and digital control system differ from conventional continuous data and an analog control system in that the signals in one or more part of these systems are in the form of either pulse trains or numerical codes. Pulse trains. Now these are the pulse trains. These sampled signals are pulse trains and these will be represented into digital codes like 01, 10, 11, 00, like that. These are the pulse trains of different amplitude and these are the digital coded words. These are the digitally coded words, right? So discrete data or a digital control system differ from conventional continuous data and analog system in that the signal in one or more parts of these systems are in the form of either pulse trains, that is sample data, or numerical codes, that is digital signal. The terms sample data control system, discrete data control system, and digital control system have all been used loosely and interchangeably in the control system literature. So these are many times used interchangeably. Sometimes digital control system is also called as discrete time control system or sample data control system, but there is some specific difference that we will see here. Sample data are the pulse amplitude modulated signals. Sample data system includes these types of signals. Sample data systems include these types of signals. So sample data are pulse amplitude modulated signals and are obtained by some means of sampling an analog signal. So it is obtained by sampling the analog signal. A pulse amplitude modulated signal is often represented in the form of pulse train with signal information carried by the amplitude of the pulse. So if I see the amplitude here, this amplitude carries the information at this instant. This amplitude carries the information at this instant. Likewise, we say that a pulse amplitude modulated signal, right, this one is often represented in the form of pulse trains with signal information carried by the amplitude of these pulses, right? After that, digital data usually are those signals generated by the digital computer, right? These signals. Digital data usually are those signals generated by the digital computer or digital transducer. They are often in the form of in some form of digitally coded. They are often in some kind of digitally coded form, right? This signal is given to analog to digital converter. It will convert this signal in the form of digital coded words like 001 if it is 3-bit, then 010, 011, then 100, likewise, right? So that is digital control system. So digital control system has a digital transducer. They are often in some kind of digitally coded form, right? So that is digital control system. And discrete data control system describe all systems having some form of digital or sample system. So discrete data system, when we say discrete data system, it includes both sample data signals and digital signals. Discrete data system includes both sampled data signals and digital signals. And when we say sample data control system, then it includes only sample signal, like in this case, this is sample data control system, right? So here we have in this sampled data closed loop system, what we have, this as a controlled process, which is nothing but our system or the plant, right? This is our output. Output is going here and it is compared with the reference value. Error is generated, error is given to the sampler. Now sampler is a device or operation that outputs pulse train, right? Now input to this sampler is this analog signal. You can see here, input to this sampler is an analog signal here. Now this sampler will sample this analog signal and will generate the output in this form. So sampler or the operation, sampler is a device or the operation that outputs a pulse train. No information is transmitted between the two pulses. So here there is no information is transmitted, right? Here sampler is assumed to have the uniform sampling rate. So T, 2T, 3T, they are having uniform sampling rate. So this time period is uniform for all the samples, right? The magnitude of the pulses, now this magnitude, and this magnitude of the pulses at a sampling instance represent the value of the input signal E of t at a corresponding instant. Value of input signal E of t at that corresponding instant, right? After that we have a filter. Now why this filter is used? Filter is used for the purpose of smoothing, since most control processes are naturally designed and constructed to receive analog signal, right? Since most of the processes or systems are designed to receive the analog signal. That's why this filter is used for smoothing the signal, right? So this is a sample data control system. Now let us talk about the closed loop digital control system. Now here we have In fact, we should call it as discrete time control system, because we have a sampler here and also a digital to analog and analog to digital converters here, right? So here we have a plant system or the process. This is our output, controlled output. It is given to a sensor output is given to anti-aliasing filter. This is given to the sample and hold circuit. Then it is given to analog and digital converter. So this is a controller here, computer. It will receive the input from analog to digital controller, and also it will receive the digital set point. Then it will compare, it will create some signal, and it will be sent to digital to analog converter, and then this signal is given to final control element, and final control element is nothing but actuator, and this is giving the input to the plant. Now in this case, a digital computer, it can be a special purpose digital computer, a microprocessor, or a digital signal processor, right? This can be a microcontroller or digital signal processor. It generates digital control signal using this computer generates digital control signal using the information of the analog to digital converter and a set point, right? So this is giving the information of the output, actual output behavior, and this is giving the desired output behavior. So desired output behavior and actual output behavior are compared here, and it will create a digital control system. For getting digital coded signal, right? For getting digital coded signal, that is binary coded signal, in certain part of the system, analog to digital and digital to analog converters are required. Analog to digital and digital to analog converters are required. Now here we have analog signal. This analog signal is converted into digital form, so we need analog to digital converter, and here at the output of the computer we will have a digital signal, then it has to be converted into analog form, so digital to analog converter is required, right? So analog to digital and digital to analog converter will be required here. Although there are some basic differences between the hardware structure and components between the sample data and digital control system, often from an analytical point of view, both types of systems are treated by same analytical tool. These are analyzed using the same analytical tool. Then what we have, sensor is going to sense the control output. Then there is an anti-aliasing filter. Now here, anti-aliasing filter has to perform the function of reducing the noise here, which is in the output signal, and then it is given to the sample and hold circuit, right? And this sample and hold circuit will sample the analog signal, and it will send it to the analog to digital converter. So this is the complete digital control system. Now if we talk about the example, if we want to explain this digital control system with the help of example, here you can see that we have a DC motor. Output of the DC motor is a speed here, which is measured by the tacho generator, right? So we have the output as actual speed here, right? This output is compared with the reference speed and actual speed. Now this error is generated. Now this is the block diagram of speed control of DC motor using controlled rectifier. You already have studied control rectifier in third year power electronics course. So in that case, by changing the firing angle, the output of the rectifier can be controlled. So when firing angle is reduced, output voltage is more, so armature voltage will be more and the speed will be more. If firing angle is increased, in that case output voltage will be less, correspondingly the armature voltage will be less, and as a result the speed will be decreased. So in order to increase the speed, we need to decrease the firing angle, and in order to decrease the speed, we need to increase the firing angle, right? So here actual speed is measured with the help of tacho generator, and this is the reference speed. Then it is compared, and then it is giving some error. This error is given to analog to digital converter, so we will have a digital computer. Then it will send signal to the SCR control circuit. It will send signal to the SCR control circuit, and then it will send signal to these SCRs, and as a result the speed will be controlled, so this is the example. In our lab also we have completed one experiment on full wave rectifier, controlled rectifier. In that case we have controlled the speed by changing the firing angle. So that complete circuit is continuous time control system. We are not using any digital controller in that, but if we use some computer here in the same system, then it will be a digital control system. So the experiment that we have performed in our lab is the example of continuous time control system, and here this is the, actually that is not the closed loop control, that is just open loop control, but here this is a digital control system, digital closed loop control system. So this is the example of a digital control system. Now let us move ahead. We need to understand why we need to go for the digital control system. So there are some advantages associated with the digital control system. Before that, we need to understand what are the advantages of the analog control system, because when we are directly going to the digital control system, we also need to understand analog control system. So analog control system, if we talk about the advantages, it operates in real time and is capable of very high bandwidth. So if we talk about the bandwidth and the operation in the real time, the analog control system is always better. So it operates in real time and it's capable of very high bandwidth. Also, it is equivalent to having an infinite sampling frequency. So here, in case of digital control system, we are having a sampler. It will sample the analog signal at distinct interval of time. But here, if we consider the continuous time system, right, analog system, then in that case the frequency is infinite. So it is equivalent to having an infinite sampling frequency, so that the controller is efficient at all the time. If we consider the example of driving the car, our eyes are sensing the track and speed at every single moment. That is a continuous time system, that is a analog system. Continuously we are monitoring it. But if we consider the case of digital control system, then it will measure the speed at distinct interval of time. So there is some specific sampling period in that. But in our case, it is infinite sampling period. In our case is infinite sampling frequency, not period, infinite sampling frequency. But there are some disadvantages associated with the analog control system. So we need to understand what are these disadvantages. Elements are usually hardwired so that their characteristics are fixed, making it more difficult to make design changes. That is one of the biggest disadvantage of the analog control system. What is the disadvantage? Elements are usually hardwired. Elements are usually hardwired so that their characteristics are fixed, and there are it is very difficult to make changes in those designs, right? Component aging and sensitivity to the environmental changes can be quite severe in case of analog control system. And lastly, analog components are more susceptible to the noise problems. Analog control components are more susceptible to the noise problems. So that's why we go for the digital control system. So what are the advantages associated with the digital control system? Digital components are less susceptible to aging and environmental variations, as we have seen in the case of analog control system. So that is the biggest disadvantage for the analog control system, but that disadvantage is easily overcome if we go for the digital control system. So digital components are less susceptible to aging and environmental variations. They are less sensitive to noise and disturbances. That is another advantage. Digital processes are more compact and lightweight, right? Digital processors are more compact and lightweight. The cost of microprocessor and digital signal processors are going continuously down. Now that you can realize, the cost is decreasing day by day. Microprocessors and digital signal processors allow more flexibility in programming and changing the design does not require an alteration in the hardware. As in case of the analog control system, even if we want to change a small component, we need to change the complete setting. We need to remove the complete parts and then we need to go for wiring again. But in case of digital control system, simply by changing the digital program, you can change the complete design. So that's why microprocessors and DSPs, like digital signal processors, allow more flexibility in programming. Right? Changing the design does not require an alteration of the hardware, and these are more reliable. Digital control system, this control system is more reliable. They provide improved sensitivity to parameter variations. So whenever there are parameter variations, they provide the improved sensitivity to parameter variations. Right? After that, after discussing all these advantages, we also need to discuss some of the disadvantages associated with the system, because here also we have some problems. If we talk about the disadvantages, the main problems associated with the implementation of digital control systems are related with the effect of sampling and quantizations. Selecting the sampling period and quantizing the values, these are some of the disadvantages associated with this digital control system. Some other disadvantages are limitations on computing speed and signal resolution due to the finite word length of digital processor. Right? In contrast to like if we compare with the analog controller, operates in real time and the resolution is theoretically infinite. But in case of digital control system, there is a limitation on computing speed and analog and signal resolution. Right? Second disadvantage is that the finite word length of the digital processor often translates into system instability in the form of limit cycle in the closed loop. So there is a finite word length in digital processor. As a result, the system may go unstable, and there may be some limit cycles in the closed loop system. So these are some of the disadvantages associated with the digital control system. So if we revise what we have covered in this lecture is, we have seen different types of signals: continuous time signals, analog signal, quantized signals, then discrete time signal, sample data signals, and digital signal. Then we have seen the block diagram of sample data control system. Then we have seen the block diagram of digital control system or discrete time control system. Then we have seen an example with the speed control of DC motor with the help of control rectifier. After that, we have talked about the advantages and disadvantages of the analog control system. And then we have talked about the advantages and disadvantages of the digital control system. So these are the topics that we have covered in this lecture. Next lecture, we will cover some more topics. Thank you.